I may be spilling a secret here, so forgive me. But for those of us, actually, I don't think it's a secret because it's all over social media sometimes.
Sometimes.
All over social media sometimes. But
that's like me. I'm always right sometimes. Yeah.
there's a sort of an unspoken rule among artistic people who go into the artistic endeavors, who study artistry and music on a tertiary level. You learn the rules so that you'll know how to break them.
Yes.
Or how to work around them necessarily.
Yes.
Because if you're just doing, because it matters once you know the reason why. It matters once you know the reason. This rule may work, this precedent may work in this setting, however in this setting,
it's not.
The variables are different, the factors are different, therefore it's not, but I can explain it to you as to why it's not.
There's I think it's an Eastern European style of singing where they use disharmonies. I've sent you a clip before.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure what they're doing will break some conventional rules of singing.
It depends on
right?
what part of the world,
I'm hoping that somebody in TNT, I won't say who, may look into doing a piece like that because it would be quite impressive, given that it's a very distinct and unique performing style. If anybody here that we may know that might have a group that might have talented singers and may be able to figure out, I don't know anybody like that, not at all. With that said, another aspect that I just wanted to go, a real example of judgmental and how not everything has to be the same. And again, it's a bit of some semi-frivolous example, but of course, there are certain directors historically that are highly respected, right? Some from the 90s, and there are a crop now like Nolan and Denis Villeneuve, but back in the day it was Martin Scorsese was one of the big directors, right? He came out and said, famously at this point, superhero films are not real films. And I think a lot of people, part of that is when you are in the position given this critique, if you're not careful, you sound like you're coming off with sour grapes, because his last big epic film that had all the usual suspects, Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, Joe Pesci, right? It was about Jamie Hoffa. So this is a big topic with big heavyweight actors, and there were more actors, and it was on Netflix. I didn't do that well. Right, it didn't do that well. And granted, superhero films now are not doing that well. I would argue some of them were very well made, and that's why most of the ones that made $1 billion were very well made examples of cinema, right? Now, Scorsese comes across like he has sour grapes, and you have to be careful for that because you're a public figure and art is subjective, and you want people to give your art a chance. That's what that singer was asking.
Give us.
Quentin Tarantino had a good take on television. He said he was watching Yellowstone, and he was impressed with the dialogue and the production value. But he said it wasn't cinema, because it was like a soap opera. It kept going. And to him, cinema has an end, a resolution. The story has a conclusion. So you need all the epic dialogue and all the epic production value, but you also need a story arc. That's what cinema is. So he doesn't come, because he's like, I'm enjoying the show. And it's like cinema, but it's not cinema, right? And then people kind of need to understand the needs of the different mediums. They're not exactly the same, right? So his criticism does not come across as sour grapes, in part because his projects aren't failing left and right, and he's just criticizing the projects that are failing. He's jumping mediums and saying, even though I like it, it's not what I do. For these constructive reasons.
So then it boils down to like you won't know. You don't know the full story of it. You're not in it to have enough information to make a proper judgment. You can objectively say, not objectively, but you can say,
from my
perspective, you can be very specific and say, you know, maybe I didn't like this. I'm just being very basic. I didn't like this angle. I didn't like this lighting in this scene. I didn't like because that's something that he knows about, right? You can make certain specific things.
Now he did go on to say, and the problem with that is, with television, at times it runs the risk where it's not going to be memorable like cinema. Right? But then so now you could say he's being a bit subjective, but I do think there's some truth.
Right, but then so then that could open a discussion of somebody saying, well, television has its own sort of guidelines and rules per se. The more people get involved in it, the more we're able to figure it out and make a genre out of it, as opposed to cinema. Because there are a lot of actors who they prefer one media over the other. So sometimes it's either film, television, or theater, live theater.
I do think, though, with very few exceptions, like obviously Tom Cruise, Henry Cavill, a lot of actors are crossing over to television, streaming series in particular, because at 12 episodes, it's like a long movie.
Right,
so it's potentially limited commitment. Right? Zoe Saldana did 2 seasons of Lioness. So
I remember there was a interview with gosh, I almost said Meredith Grey, Ellen Pompeo.
Right.
And she said, it's the great thing about streaming services is like there's a beginning and an end.
Yes.
That's what she appreciates.
She did a miniseries.
Yeah, she did a miniseries. She was actually talking to Katherine Heigl, who also did a miniseries in
I
Canada
think in part Ellen Pompeo, because she's the lead in Grey's Anatomy, right?
That has 25,000 seasons.
Yeah, it has gone on
still
forever.
Going. Yeah.
It was an old show when I started watching it 15 years ago, right? Let's just be real now.
Hey, I watch it.
2008, 2009, I started watching it. It already was like 6-7 seasons long.
Yes.
Right?
They're like season 20.
But I think
like that.
Tarantino's point, and he is, I think, you could say maybe a little bit sour because cinema as an art form for various reasons is under duress. And television is having a silver age, like a renaissance, whatever.
Yeah.
But particularly streaming, which is kind of unfair because that's like an in-between thing. But even network television is being a bit more, we have an overarching plot.
Yes.
So it's more like a large movie than just this week-to-week kind of dribble.
For sure.
But Tarantino's point that, is it all memorable? Now, arguably, yes, you will get memorable moments in some seasons of Grey's Anatomy, but at some point, the story of Meredith Grey, Ellen Pompeo's character, do you really remember all of it? And I'm sure there are parts of it you're like, I would rather forget. I don't need that. I mean, to be fair, I do the same thing with Star Wars. It's like, I don't need that. Or Star Trek. I don't need that. Some of that was nonsense. It was bad writing. I'll just ignore it.
I think memory has a lot to do with the watcher's time and stage and age, because I remember there are moments that are more memorable to me when I was younger than now. But I won't know if these now moments are memorable until I get older. So it's like it's almost like that sort of catch-22.
Perception, everything is new. So you're more impressionable because of that.
Exactly. Right. And I always say like Lion King is my favorite movie of all time, but I think my dad told me it was the first movie that I ever watched. The animated one. Yeah. It was the first movie that I ever watched in K. Donner. Who remembers K. Donner?
I love K. Donner.
So that was K. Donner. I think that was the first movie that I ever watched.
We lost something losing K. Donner. I'm sorry. Although, just yesterday, my friends were like, you remember Globe? Yeah, and I was like, yeah, but you used to watch 2 movies. I'm like, back then movies were 1.5 hours, right?
Yes.
You know 2-3 hour movies, we might all die, right? Yeah. We don't have the
can't all be an Avengers Endgame every single time.
No, but because people are accustomed to the one movie model.
Right.
But the drive-through probably could have lasted any one movie model, to be honest.
Exactly, because a lot of vintage things are kind of coming back. But come back to the topic and developing on your point. Like we need to be very, very careful. I think in the artistic space, because especially in Trinidad and Tobago, the artistic space is small. People know each other.
Especially since you see this in K-pop, but in other. So one of the reasons I think social media and streamers are popular is because it's tied to their personality. They reveal more of themselves. And K-pop does a lot of, the artists do a lot of streams and variety show appearances, right? So imagine a reality show, but it's not random people. It's all celebrity people all the time. That's what their variety shows are basically like, right? Imagine Price is Right or Big Brother, but just always with celebrities, right? And they're more exposed and people are more judgmental of them. So they themselves now can't be judgmental.
Right.
They have to be very, very careful, for better or worse.
But I would
that
say,
might be where the future is for celebrities.
For sure. And just as we wrap up, I would also say just for us artists to be very aware of the space that we're in. And there's a time for competition, but there's also a time for collaboration. You know, there's a time for when we need to be like, yes, really story, really quickly, beautiful story. I accompanied 3 school choirs for a music festival, which was 2020, just before the lockdown. And it was for 3 different schools, 3 different music teachers that all knew each other and that were all friends with each other. And even though it was a competitive setting, because it's music festival, we're all competing, but the spirit of collaboration was still able to exist, and that was a really, really beautiful thing.
That requires maturity that not everybody in any field has.
Correct is right.
Not just music.
Correct is right. But that's our discussion for our first segment. We're going to come right back to Breakthrough. Don't go anywhere.